Okay, we have plenty of stuff to talk about. The biggest news, I suppose, this week, Alex, was Google's I/O. They have this big meeting every year with a few keynotes, perhaps explaining what they're going to introduce in the next 12 months or so. And much of it, to be honest, in the last few years, much of the stuff they talked about never really came out. Or if it did, it was a bit of a disaster. Remember Google... What was the social networking thing? I can't even remember the name. Buzz? Google Buzz? I'm sure it was something like that. Nobody even knows about it. That's how much of a flop it was. Among other things, really. But some things came out of it and actually enjoyed a bit of success and still do. So this year they talked about, well, perhaps the biggest surprise was... a music service, a cloud music service that they're going to introduce called Music Beta at the moment. That's what it's called.
Yeah. Yes, this is a service that is, it allows you to stick your music up to 20,000 songs, I believe, online. So you can just upload your own songs and then they're accessible wherever
Indeed,
you are.
They are, yeah.
They're accessible by a normal sort of browser, sort of a modern browser, web browser.
Mac will do, yeah.
Yep. Or Android devices. So if you have an Android device, you can use that as well. So it's not supported at the moment on iOS devices and things, so you wouldn't be able to access it from your mobile.
Well, to be honest, the majority of you wouldn't be able to access it anyway, because it's only available to certain people. So it's only by invitation, basically. But in the future, I suppose iOS is not there in the group of devices that is supported as listed as capable of running this service, but it will, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because, if Google wants to put out a service for everybody, and everybody is trying to fight for this niche market now. Amazon started their own music service. Perhaps the biggest flaw that you get out of this is not so much how many devices support the service, because it's still in beta, but it's actually how the service works. And the main problem here is that Google didn't actually, or wasn't able to strike any deals with the music labels. They tried, but they were probably asking for too much or something that the labels were not willing to give out. So they're actually doing this without any agreement. So you just, basically what you do is that the user has to manually push out all the music, upload all the music into Google's service, and then you upload it from there. Which for me adds two problems for the future. First, no user will want to do this manually, and every time you buy a new album on iTunes, you have to manually go and add that, upload it to the Google service, which nobody wants to do. Let's face it, you'll just forget about it. And the second problem is that, well, you'll have legal wars with the labels, which might end up bringing the effectiveness of this service down, as well as future improvements that Google wants to make. They'll always be limited by the licenses that they do not have. So it's a bit of a risky business here from Google. Apple is rumored to be doing exactly the same thing, but with some licenses, and probably you wouldn't have to upload all your music, because that would be daft, and that's something Apple would not want their users to have to go through the pain of doing. So, but what's your whole idea? Because you've read a little bit about this, and you've seen a few of the pictures. We don't really have much information.
Yeah, it's still, like it says, beta, so they're still getting to grips with it, I suppose. It's a good concept, isn't it? But it is what you say. It's going to be hit with a few flaws that are either going to be sorted out or that are just kind of never going to be dealt with properly. So it looks like it's good. It's potentially good, isn't it?
They do something that's really good, Alex. They actually have an option where you, according to them, you pin a song, and not only can you stream it, but if you pin it, you actually download it. So that means you can now You can listen to it whenever, even if you don't have a 3G signal.
Yeah, so it kind of caches certain songs, doesn't it? So
which then
when you're offline, you can still, which is definitely a big flaw of the cloud-based music listening. If you've got no connection, or you're on a plane, or you've got no music,
that's the biggest flaw, I suppose.
Yeah,
but that adds another problem, and the main thing that music labels complain about, and that's exactly what they're complaining about with the Amazon service, and that they already receiving lawsuits from labels. Google is. The main problem is that they complain that you're actually duplicating a license, or you're making a copy when you don't have legal rights to make copies of these files.
Yeah.
Right? Now, for me, that doesn't make any sense, right? Because it's the same song, but it's a whole license issue. And the problem is, if now you're making a copy to Google's service, and then you're making another copy to come back to you, that's going to bring even more wood to be burned by this legal fight that the labels are surely going to put on, and they're starting to put on. That wasn't the only thing that Google announced. There was just one of the things.
Not at all.
For example, movie rental is another thing that was talked about.
Something new, isn't it? To rent $1.99 for rent of movies.
$1.99. Unfortunately, that is
dollars,
in America, because this is not going to be available in the UK anytime soon. I'm sure Google will want to, but then again, licenses is a problem.
And the same applies for movies. You can pin them and then download it. And so even if it's rented though, streaming, obviously you can do that as well. Obviously,
this is so frustrating because it's great to see Google doing these things. It's great to see Amazon doing this. We just saw last week YouTube trying to do exactly the same thing, bringing movies and show rentals into their service. But then we here in the UK, and I'm sure the rest of the world, will never see these things. Or if we will, it'll be like 10 years from now.
Yeah.
YouTube just said it's got no plans and no agreements with anybody to bring the movie rental services to the UK. So it's just so crazy the way these things are set up. Anyway, it's quite an important move from Google, and if eventually they do it, they'll come back. They'll come to Europe, I'm sure. Anything else that was announced from Google that was worth mentioning?
No, they're just honeycomb updating things.
Something that doesn't really refer to Apple Geek.
So.